What is self-love in 2019? In this video, you're going to learn what self-love actually is when talked about in psychology. I want to discuss some of the misunderstandings about this whole idea of self-love, why this is not some eye-roll worthy concept, but really legitimately matters when we talk about confidence, happiness, self-esteem, good mental health. I want to share some of the research that shows how difficult it is to move towards any of that when self-love and compassion are absent. And then I want to wrap up the video with the 5 must-have skill sets for any self-love practice so you can start using this today with the understanding of why it really matters. My name is Ashley Walkney, and I'm a therapist and credentialed life coach, and on this channel, we talk about self-management strategies to help us better in life. Self-love is something that's very misunderstood by most people. When I talk about self-love with somebody, there's often words like cocky or selfish, big-headed, vain. These kinds of terms start to show up. And when I suggest self-love as a practice, people are often like, hang on a second, are you asking me to just tolerate myself and put up with the way things are? Because I don't really like any of that. And so let me clarify that self-love is a stance we take in response to inner adversity. So when the inner critic shows up or when we're going through a really emotional time, it's very common in those situations to beat ourselves up for feeling the way we're feeling and thinking what we're thinking. And so this is more like asking yourself, how would you deal with this if it were a friend going through a hard time? And can you translate that to the way you treat yourself and stand with yourself when adversity is present? An important question we can ask ourselves is, based on the way I'm treating myself right now, would I want to date me? Is this relationship healthy, or is it really toxic? Because we can look at how a relationship plays out over the long term with friends, and we can see that it works the same way when applied inside our own skin with the relationship we have with ourselves. So, positive reinforcement in a relationship versus negative reinforcement in a relationship. Think of somebody in your life who's constantly yelling at you and criticizing you, lecturing you, and personally attacking you, essentially bullying you, right? And how does that relationship play out over time? It does nothing for the relationship except for move you guys apart, make you feel uncomfortable in their presence, and any changes that you do make typically stem from your desire to get them off your back, right? It's not really long-term motivation for change. Versus somebody in your life, like, a teacher or a coach or a friend, just somebody that's there for you and has your back. And when you screw up, they support you, they give you feedback as opposed to lectures and criticism. What does that relationship look like over time? It makes you respect them more. It makes you love them more, and it makes you want to reach that bar that they've set for you because they know that you're worth it and you can do it. And this is exactly what happens in the relationship we have with ourselves based on how we treat ourselves. Positive reinforcement versus negative reinforcement. Negative reinforcement is kind of a recipe, a fast track to self-hatred and loathing and mistrust in the same way it is in an external relationship. Whereas positive reinforcement is a road to self-worth, to self-love, to confidence, and self-improvement. We can also see the impact of self-compassion when we look at brain scans. So if you look at a brain scan of somebody's who is lacking self-compassion and love, and you put it next to a brain scan of somebody who has self-love and compassion as a skill set, you see that those brains actually look very different. The person that is lacking is also lacking gray matter in the regions of the brain that help us overcome adversity. And the The brain that is lacking self-love and compassion is also lacking oxytocin levels. Oxytocin is a hormone that helps us feel calm and connected, which, helps us be more at peace with ourselves and with our lives and be more effective in terms of our actions. And so what does this mean when you look at these scans? Well, what it means is that the person who's lacking self-love and compassion is responding to themselves by bullying themselves, beating themselves up for not being the way they would like to be. And in doing so, are actually undermining their very ability to eventually become the way they would like to be, because they are chipping away at the very fabric inside their own brain that actually makes that possible. So when we talk about recovery from anything, from depression to anxiety and stress and, past bad events, those things are very difficult to overcome and recover from when the self-love and compassion is missing. If you want to practice self-love and compassion, there are 5 must-have skill sets that make up any of these practices. And I recommend that you choose 1 or 2 of them to begin with and then move through them accordingly, instead of trying to develop them all at the same time. The first skill set is your ability to pay attention. You have to be paying attention to what is happening in your inner life, not just your outer life, so that you can catch these moments when the inner critic shows up and these, you're having these difficult emotions and you're on autopilot responding to yourself in a very harsh way. Start by just checking in with yourself throughout the day, just noticing what your mind is saying at that moment, noticing how you're feeling emotionally, where that's showing up in your body, just getting to know yourself and the relationship that you have with yourself, from a place of non-judgment. Skill set number 2 is normalizing the inner critic. Understanding that we're human and, we're not perfect, even though we live in a society of perfectionistic expectations. So normalizing how you're thinking and how you're feeling in that moment, understanding that you are feeling this way because you're human, not because there's something fundamentally wrong with you. Skill set number 3 is the ability to defuse from harsh, judgmental self-talk. So harsh, judgmental self-talk starts to come into our head, right? And we usually get really caught up in it. We usually get totally absorbed by it and we believe it wholeheartedly. It often changes the way that we act in the situation. So to defuse means to step back, to have just a little bit of space between you and that thought, enough space for you to recognize this as a thought, so that you can ask yourself the question, if I sit here fused with this and just beat myself up, is it useful? Is it going to help me or is it going to hurt me? That is the ability to defuse from negative self-talk, and it's a skill set that is really helpful for practicing self-love and compassion. The 4th skill set of a self-love practice is the ability to be patient and stand with ourselves emotionally. So these kind of difficult emotions are showing up and we don't like it, and the typical response is to try and push it away, get into a fight with ourselves for feeling how we're feeling. So just like we defuse from the harsh, judgmental self-talk, we need to be able to stand with ourselves, kind of offer that same support and compassion and patience and understanding that we would give to somebody else, until those emotions kind of blow through us and move on their own. Skill set number 5 is knowing and being able to act on our own personal staples. So what do I mean by personal staples? Personal staples are ways of acting that we choose because this is how I want to be as a person in my life. It's not because other people tell me I should or society tells me I should. It's because this is the kind of person I choose to be. Ask yourself, what kind of friend do I want to be to somebody who's going through a hard time? Patient, understanding, kind, considerate, loving, respectful, I don't know. You decide on the personal traits, and then you can't be a hypocrite about it. If you're going to be that way to other people, then you have to also be that way in the relationship with yourself. Why? Because it's a self-chosen personal staple that defines your own identity in terms of how you choose to be. Staples are cool because they give us direction. Once you know what your personal staples are, you can imagine yourself in the situation with another person and say, what would I say and do in those moments? And then you can apply that to yourself, and that is an act of self-love and compassion. So those are the 5 must-have skill sets for a self-love and compassion practice. And like I said, you can focus on these individually and then build your ability to kind of put them all together. It's a little less overwhelming. If you have any questions about the skill sets or about anything on this topic, please leave those in the comments below. And if you have any follow-up suggestions for future videos on this topic, also, I would love you to leave those in the comments. This is a new channel. I'm really open to feedback. I want this channel to be as helpful as possible. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share this with other people that you think would benefit. And until next time, take care.